Welcome back into the Mental Game. I'm your host, Brandon Saho, and this week's guest is Jon Jones of the Eli Young Band, and this was an awesome conversation where in this episode, we talked to Jon about what it was like when the Eli Young Band formed when they were in college together at North Texas, what it's like to see your song go platinum and #1, but also the challenges when the music isn't topping the charts, and then we also take a deep dive into Jon's own mental health journey. All of that and much more coming up in this episode. But before we get started, let's kick things off with this week's Mental Health Tip of the Week, powered by 1 in 5, and it is all about supporting yourself. When you are struggling with mental health, it is essential to support yourself in times of need. Remind yourself that you are not alone, and there are friends, family, mentors, etc. who support you as well. Be sure to practice self-help techniques like getting proper exercise, focusing on or finding hobbies, and creating routines for yourself. Additionally, doing small things for yourself can help, like cleaning messy spaces in your home, eating nourishing meals, and keeping up with basic hygiene. When you are struggling with your mental health, even the simplest tasks are challenging, so even words of affirmation can work. Find things that work for you to support yourself when you are struggling. And if you or someone you know needs help finding a therapist or mental health resources, go ahead and scan the QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. It'll be up this entire episode, and it'll take you directly to 1 in 5's homepage, where their mission is to prevent suicide by stopping the stigma and starting the conversation. Before we get into the episode, I want to acknowledge, yes, I still have the Who Dey stash. My Cincinnati Bengals undefeated 6-0 since I started growing the mustache. They go to the playoffs to take on the Ravens this weekend, so until they lose, hopefully I have it all the way to the Super Bowl, I will not shave this stash. Now it is time for the latest episode of The Mental Game with Jon Jones of the Eli Young Band. Welcome back into The Mental Game. I am joined today by Jon Jones of the Eli Young Band. Jon, I really appreciate you doing this, man.
Yeah, thanks for the invite.
First thing I ask everyone when they come on here is, what does mental health mean to you? So what does mental health mean to you, and how have you been able to use it throughout your long career in music?
Yes, we've been a band for 21 years, and so we've never really had, since college, another job. And navigating 21 years of being in a band with 3 other guys has brought a lot of mental health, I guess, challenges and things that made me more aware. Mental health to me is really, I don't know, trying to find a set of things for yourself that kind of keeps you at the top of your game.
Yeah.
That allows you to be your best, and realizing when you're not and trying to figure out why you're not.
So you guys all meet at the University of North Texas. What year was that?
That would have been in 99.
At Sigma Nu, and I'm a Sigma Nu too. We talked about this a little bit off camera. I was only a Sigma Nu for a semester and a half at West Virginia, because I don't know if you remember this from that trip, but West Virginia is kind of a party school.
Yes, you showed us that.
Yeah, so you guys stopped there with the frat house at Sigma Nu in Morgantown, had a good time. But you guys meet at Sigma Nu in college. Walk me through those early days of you guys meeting, realizing that this could be something special together.
So Chris, drummer, James, guitar player, myself, all started in 98 and met then. All played in bands before college, and that's something we had in common. And so we just kind of got together and jammed. We're like, oh, we got a guitar player, a drummer, and a bass player. We just need a singer.
Yeah.
Mike came to school the next year and became a Sigma Nu, became my little brother. We all lived in the fraternity house, Chris and I in one room, and Mike and James in another room.
Good times.
Mike and James started writing songs. It was great times.
Yeah.
And we just kind of started a band, and we didn't know it was going to be a country band or what it was going to be. Mike's voice is very country. He grew up really both feet in that world, and so that's where we landed. And by the time we graduated, we weren't making a living doing it, but we were doing well enough that we were willing to just, like, we're going to go for it and see what happens. When
you go from a bar band, how do you take that next step? Because I'm sure a lot of people that watch this are aspiring musicians. And I know it from working in, entertainment a little bit. I know plenty of guys that are DJs, bands, play gigs in Cincinnati where we're at now, or locally, regionally, whatever. What was it like going from bar band, grinding that out, and trying to get to the next step?
Oh, it takes it takes so much more than talent. You know, I've always said, and it's true in sports and other fields, that like we're somewhere in the middle. Like there's definitely many more talented bands and singers that have made it so much farther than us, but also that haven't made it as far as us.
Yeah.
A little bit of luck, a lot of tenacity, I think, sticking together and all being on the same page. Like there's an old saying, like, make sure everybody in your bus is doing the same drugs.
Yeah.
Which in my line of work is kind of a literal saying, but
Yeah.
you know, none of us ever got caught up in anything like really bad. We were all kind of on the same page.
Yeah.
Which is helpful. But making that next step, it was always a goal. Like 21 years ago, would I have, like, when I was writing down goals, would I have thought that we'd be where we're at now? No, but you know, it's like such a weird road to navigate. You just kind of have to roll it a little bit. But there's a point where like you're willing to play for free beer, and then you get paid a little more than that, and then it becomes like a career, and you're like, all right, how do I make this? How do I treat this like a career, yet still be like this fun thing that I was more than happy to do for free beer?
Right.
You know, when we started out.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do anything for free beer, really. I'm a Coors Light guy, so if Coors Light's watching, maybe an endorsement down the road. You guys make the jump. What was it like with guys that you had really grinded with, though? You played bar to bar, and I'm sure free beer is great. Probably, you know, maybe some of you guys were some ladies' man, too. Just having some fun while you're younger in college, and you get out and you want to make it your living. How did you flip the switch, and where did you get the first big break?
First big break was having a song called When It Rains kind of hit the radio. When there was still a time when you could have a song get played by DJs in different parts of the country without being on a major label, without having like a big financial backing and all that stuff. And that led us to the major labels and everything, getting on some tours and some other things. You know, before TikTok and all those things, at our age, we're like struggling to figure out how do we fit into that landscape. It's weird how much the landscape has changed, the way people, you know, when we were in college, it was like, it was Napster. You were illegally downloading everything, you know, but we had all the music, which was awesome. And then, you know, finally it's kind of come around and it's gotten better with streaming services and all that. But, you know, those first big breaks there's a couple, like that song Crazy Girl, our first big #1. Without that song, I don't know if we'd be sitting here right now. Right. You know, whether or not another song would have come around to do that for us. It really just takes a couple of those key moments and key songs that come your way that can really, you know, set up a long career if you want it to be that way. But yeah, we were so old at this and that, but when we were still like single after college, was right before cell phones were taking good pictures, before social media.
Right.
Probably a good thing.
Yep.
Definitely a good thing.
I can dig up those pictures from when you guys were in Morgantown.
Was that?
We can throw it in here.
Was that like would that have been? Like
it was just iPhones just coming out when you guys were there. So,
yeah. And they seemed like they were taking great pictures, but in retrospect,
you can make it out.
Right. So that was probably near the tail end of our partying days.
Yeah.
And luckily, like one of the big keys to our like internal and emotional success, but you know, relating to mental health, is that we have always been on the same page, not just musically. And with four of us, there's struggles, but like as far as going through the phases of life together, we all kind of decided, all right, we can't party like this forever. It's not sustainable. We grew up watching too many VH1 Behind the Music, you know, and we didn't want to follow that path. So we're like, we need to grow up a little bit,
just tiny bit.
You got to keep our edge.
Yeah.
But maybe it's time to settle down. And so we all kind of started dating more seriously, kind of got engaged and married within the same couple of years. And then now all of us have 2 or 3 kids each.
Oh, wow.
From like 10 to 1.
Okay.
And so it's become, we're really kind of following each other through life. It's all kind of on a shared path together, which is very, very helpful.
When you get that first #1 hit, Crazy Girl, which is the song that I think of when I think of the Eli Young Band, what was that moment like to just see it start to go up the charts and to hear people start singing it? And when you go play shows, people know it. What was it like with that first really, really big song?
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible. And by the time I hit #1, it had been going up the charts for like almost a year. And that ended up being the most played song on country radio in that year, out of anything.
Wow.
Which is outrageous. But it was a slow build. And so by the time it hit like 5, it had already been like a huge climb up the mountain. And at that point, it's kind of politics. Like you can gotta read the tea leaves and see like what's ahead of you. How long is that going to be at number one? And then everybody's kind of figuring out, doing the math, like, all right, here's our spot, and this is the week we go for it. And it's fun to see what a team effort it is, and how the different things that it takes to get to number one that you didn't really realize. You're like, all right, it's a great song, it'll just do its thing. No, you're trading favors with other labels. You're like, all right, your artist isn't going to go for 2 more weeks because you need room for us here, but we'll give you space here for this other artist. And it's weird. It's kind of cool. I don't. People that listen to music don't need to care about that stuff.
Well, I think it's interesting.
Some people find it interesting. Some people don't like to see behind the curtain. There's a lot that goes on behind the curtain. But it was fun for that to be like our moment. That's our moment to be number one. And at that point, we had put in years and seen so many bands that we knew were better than us, that we had lost to like battle the bands with back in the day, that couldn't keep it together, and they were great but they broke up, and we made it through there. And that's kind of when we're like, all right, we can play this game.
How was it just staying on the path and being able to keep writing songs and keep making music when you aren't having that big level success right away? Because most people, I mean, TikTok wasn't a thing. You couldn't put out one of your first 5 songs and all of a sudden it gets off on TikTok and now it's downloaded all over the world millions of times. You guys really had to grind to make it, from the bars to the studio. How did you guys stay motivated, not just break up like you talk about other bands doing?
I think when you get to a point when you're making a living doing it, for us, and enjoying being on stage, like even through the ups and downs, big crowds, small crowds, hits, not hits, getting on stage has always kind of been our release. And that kind of fuels the fire. But at times it's been a struggle keeping our label engaged and them wanting to fight for a song. And for us to like figure out who we still are as musicians, like, all right, we had some songs that really worked at radio that were us. And now we've had a couple that haven't. Do we need to like think about the direction of our music? And I think we made some choices that probably in retrospect were not great, as far as like the way some albums were produced and the sounds. Like I feel like the songs were there, but maybe we were stretching for something that wasn't us. And quickly found out from feedback and from fans and from people around us, like, now just be yourselves. And I feel like we're in a really good place with that again. And now it's just trying to figure out, it's a daily struggle in this line of work, is like making people pay attention.
And let's bring back the curtain a little bit, like you talked about. How crazy is the music industry? I mean, you hear about it so much, and I have friends that have been in it and interviewed different artists that are in that industry, and there are things that people at home will never understand, whether it be the grind of writing, producing, recording, touring. We were talking about the bus earlier. What is it like being in that business for 20 plus years at a high level?
It's a roller coaster. Like that's the biggest thing, is like trying to deal with the ups and the downs. And at this point with kids, it's like we are out almost every week through the year, but we're out like 3 days. And then you go home and your dad, to like waking up at 5:45 every morning, getting the kids up for school, making them lunch, and doing that whole thing, and then like hopping on a plane last night, and then flipping that switch. Like, all right, now I'm a night owl. I'm a party guy. I got to show this thing on stage, and like gearing up for that. Doing like big live TV spots or late night shows, and trying to like not let all that get to you too much. Like not so much ego wise. We've never had those issues, but let the stress be too debilitating, or not to get too down when a song doesn't hit number one and doesn't do well, but then to take it in stride and try to like enjoy the moment when you do have those big, huge, career defining moments, and not just to like let them pass you by, knowing that could be the last time that you play in a stadium. It could be the last time that you do like the Tonight Show or anything like that. It does take a toll. Like it makes a lot of musicians like cynical. It makes a lot of musicians turn to substance abuse, and we've heard too many people like going to rehab, like, oh, he just always seemed like he was a fun party guy or girl or whatever, and but that can quickly shift the other way if you can't handle either the alcohol or just the mental toll that it takes.
Yeah.
Dealing with the highs and the lows and the on the road, off the road personas, and trying to. I think for us, we just try to be regular people.
Yeah.
Which comes pretty naturally to us. And you see a lot of artists that struggle with who they are on and off stage, and how do you like bridge that gap?
What has been, the hardest thing for you or you guys just mentally, getting through over the past 15 plus years? Because I think, a lot of people see, like you talked about, you guys being happy, having fun on stage, and then, being the party guys, and you're trying to get out of that phase to be more of, dad mode now. But people don't, they don't know what's going on up here. What has been maybe one of or a couple of the hardest things you guys have had to go through as a group?
I think we all have struggled differently. So like, I can really talk about like what I have mentally struggled with the most. And it's something I've had to work on a lot over the past decade plus since we've been making like a comfortable living doing this.
Right.
And I've had a good chance to talk to a lot of athletes, and like, there's a lot of crossover, a lot of similarities of, they know they're just one injury away or being cut from a team, or this contract might look secured on paper, but how do I deal with knowing that we're just one of us saying, screw it, I'm out of here, from the band breaking up.
Right.
And that could be any day.
Yeah.
And there's been times where we fight like brothers. And we used to fight like brothers. Now we fight like an old married couple that just kind of lets it go. It's like,
It's like, all right, you win, whatever.
We're just going to sit here in silence.
Yeah.
In angst against each other, but it's fine. We'll wake up. So always things like we'll wake up tomorrow and figure it out. If there's an issue after a show or whatever, things get a little heated. But there was a long time where I just really struggled with, am I going to have this next year? And okay, I got a degree in psychology. That doesn't really get you a job. And I've never had a job. I've never had to put together a resume.
Ever?
No.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
This is it.
Yeah,
I'm technically the CFO of Eli Young LLC, and that's
okay. Well, that looks pretty good on a resume.
that's what I fill out when I've got to do like an auto loan or something like that. And even just talking about it, I'm starting to get anxious because like it was almost debilitating for years, and I just had to like take a deep breath. If I'll figure it out. If that's what happens, we'll figure it out. I can't let it affect my relationship with these four guys. I can't, let it affect my relationship at home or any of that stuff. I've just got to, we've got to live in the moment. And now it's been 21 years as a band, and we could still break up tomorrow. But I don't think we're going to. I think we're in this for better, for worse until the wheels fall off, and I've got to treat it that way. And that's been very helpful. But I feel like I wasted a lot of time with those anxieties.
Sure.
But it's like weird how sometimes talking points are the exact opposite of what it's like behind the scenes. Like one thing you always said, and for the most part is true, is that the four of us always feel like there's something really good right around the corner.
Yeah.
And I feel like we tend to say that most when it's really hard to feel that way.
Yeah.
Like saying it makes it
It's kind of like a
reassuring
mental game with yourself or with you guys saying, all right, it's about to happen.
Right. If I say it into this camera,
then
it's probably true.
Yeah.
But trying to actually feel that way or be comfortable with, it might be a couple corners from now, and maybe we've already had all the big peaks, and maybe it's not a slow ride to the bottom, but it's figuring out how to continue a career with the success of where we're at, and maybe just be okay with that. And I've watched the four of us at different times. It kind of take more of a toll, and I'm so glad it can be four of us. For one thing, as a bass player, you could name on like one hand bass players with a successful solo career.
Yeah.
So that was never my path, and so I'd have to have the people around me to do it.
Right.
But to be able to bounce off each other, keep us from having inflated egos, or just to talk someone off a ledge and be like, all right, we're good.
Right.
That song didn't do what we wanted it to do, or this show fell through, or COVID. We're not going to play a show for another year and a half or whatever. And trying to navigate that on your own with nothing but managers and agents around you that might have your best interest in mind, but
don't understand it entirely.
yeah, and have their own interests as well. You know, a lot of solo acts, I don't know how they do it. Like we've got each other, and that's definitely been an asset more than it's been anything else. And COVID was really tough. I mean,
whole industry shut down.
Whole industry shut down, and probably the worst for like new acts that maybe were having their first song gonna hit radio, and that whole opportunity just went away.
The rapper Jack Harlow, his song "What's Popping" came out right when COVID hit, and he got up to the charts, and he didn't do a show for like a year and a half.
Yeah, because
it's crazy.
It's like in this industry, you can make a ton of money really quick, especially if you're a solo act and you've got a big pop hit, rap hit. That's your moment. You can seize, and or if you can't play, which is like everybody's main revenue stream.
Right, is live shows. Yeah,
that's so much missed opportunity and tough to deal with. Luckily we've been doing this long enough and are financially, I don't know, we're not stupid with our money.
Right.
Where we could kind of navigate the storm okay. But it was tough. It was like, all right, nice to be home with the kids. Nice to, you don't expect to have that kind of time in this line of work to be there 24/7 for months on end. But how do you, like, what's a hobby now? What do I do? What do I do? Like, who am I now that...
Did you guys get on a Zoom call and start, like, writing, or what?
Mike, our singer, got a publishing deal right before COVID, because we've always just had our own publishing, but he's always wanted to take writing more seriously, make it more of a focus of his. And so it was great, because living in Texas, that was a time when like Zoom writing became acceptable. No one really wanted to do it before. So he was writing with like great writers from Nashville and LA, New York, and everybody was just willing to do it. So that was like 9 to 5. He was doing that. I took up woodworking.
There you go.
I still have all my fingers, but I bought all the saws and started building things. It's just like always.
I'd be scared as shit to do that.
My wife was so nervous. I didn't drink while I was doing it. I was like, all right, if I'm sober, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to lose a finger.
It could be more fun, a little tipsy. But
it was so tempting. Yeah. But there was a couple close calls when I heard like a zip and the like board would go flying across the room, and I go, all right.
Nope, we got them all.
We're good. Yeah. Slow down. Yeah.
Let's go back to the psychology major in college, because you mentioned that in that last answer. Why did you pick that, and how do you think that's helped you with your mental health throughout your life?
Like undergrad psychology, taking some of those classes I think would be helpful for anybody, just to give you a greater awareness, understanding, and appreciation for the way our mind works. And none of it gets all that deep. There's a lot of great postgraduate studies you can do and really focus in on something. But we're like 1 or 2 generations away from when most people didn't really believe that was a thing or necessary.
Right.
And now, like, trying to find a counselor for our son and trying to find mental health for children has become so difficult, because so many kids need it now.
Right.
Not only is it accepted, but the pandemic has just led to so many issues and things that. But my path to it was, I was a music major, and not a very good one. A lot of 8 o'clock classes. We were a bar band and a fraternity. And I went to college to get away from home, to one of the best college music schools in the country at University of North Texas. And I got weeded out pretty quickly. Like I can't say if I could hang there talent-wise, because I don't know. I couldn't mentally put myself in a place where I would put the work in.
Well, they try to grind you out. Like, my brother was a graphic design major at a very tough graphic design school here at the University of Cincinnati, and it's 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, all freshman years. Was it the same at North Texas?
Yes.
Okay.
And like all these 1-hour classes that you took so much of your time. They were 8 o'clock in the morning, and that wasn't happening.
Yeah.
But I've always had in my head, like, get a degree. That's what you do. So second year of college, my parents were going through a divorce, and my mom suggested going to see a counselor in the summertime to kind of talk about that, because that was a tough thing for me. Really hit me hard, my parents going through divorce, and talking to the counselor was good. That also led to talking about school and how I was doing, and came to this conclusion that I have ADD and really have my whole life just under the surface.
Yeah.
I was always smart enough to get by, but struggled in school. And just knowing that was helpful, and then getting on medication, and then went from on the borderline of like, is college really for you? Like my grandpa came down and had that speech with me.
Yeah.
Like about the military and like college isn't for everyone, which was like, that scared me. Like,
Right.
all right, we need to figure this out. And maybe he's right. But I went and made Dean's List every semester after that. And
awesome.
Just the awareness of like, this is something I need to know that, okay, focusing is an issue. This medication is very helpful. I was so motivated. And psychology, because that was my path there, just was I was so intrigued. It's like, wow, this is like changing my life.
Right.
What more do I need to know about this?
Were you able to recognize then music your entire life was almost like medication too, to be able to help you with anxiety and the OC and everything? Because you had the school knowledge of psychology now, I'm sure music has to be your happy place, the thing that you love the most, and it helps your mental health the most.
For sure. I think with ADD, there's something like that some people can, it's not like a superpower, but sometimes they describe those things that are part of whatever disability or whatever you want to call it, that will be described as like, this is like your superpower, but being able to like really hyper focus into something.
Okay.
And I could just lose myself in music, playing it, listening to it, just really ingraining myself in it in a way that I can't in hardly anything else.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's because that's why I was drawn towards music. But I also started playing music when I was 3.
Right.
It was just part of the family thing.
Oh,
You're
wow,
gonna play
that's super
instruments.
young.
And, I don't know where we were going with that, but
mental health and music, how that's music's kind of been your medicine, I guess. Is
yeah,
where we're going,
yeah. And then like when COVID hit, like what else can I do to find that passion somewhere else? And it's weird when like the thing you love and is your hobby,
right,
the thing that kind of grounds you, becomes the thing that you do, and becomes so much more than that, and not all positive things. Like we're gonna play the same songs every night. And so the creative outlet's kind of gone from there.
Right.
But I'm kind of okay with it. You know?
And I get it to a certain extent. You know, I got to live my dream job, being a sports reporter, going to the Super Bowl, going to, the biggest games in baseball, basketball. But, you're on the road. You're working late nights. People just see, you're at the game. You're on the sideline next to Joe Burrow. Yeah, that's awesome. But it's also, you're working 12-hour days. You're not eating. You're not sleeping. It takes a toll on everything. Let's flip to a more positive side of when you're getting ready for a gig, like tonight in Cincinnati. When you go to walk on the stage, do you still get those same butterflies, excitement, that juice? Like, what is that moment like for you?
Yeah, I still get that. The anxiety, still get that little bit of adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
That's a healthy, little endorphin release. And I hope that's always there.
Right.
None of us in the band are like, we were like, I was saying, I think it was off camera, that none of us were like the I need to be on stage guys.
Right.
And honestly, I feel like we've had to overcome a lot of anxieties to be those guys to get on stage every night.
Sure.
And to learn to do it without drinking too much. And, like maybe we'll have a drink before we get on stage just to kind of, this is our social hour.
Right.
On the bus, we'll have a drink, talk about the set, whatever, BS. And, but it's not like I need to do this to get on stage without shaking and to be in front of people. But there's definitely been in times, and that's when you go from a bar band, when it's like, we're all taking shots together, to like, we're on tour with Kenny Chesney, we're playing stadiums every every night. Little different. And are we just a bar band? Is that our zone, or can we like rise to this challenge and be like professionals?
Yeah.
And to do it in a way that I don't know, we get off stage with that really good feeling. And then what do you do when you get off stage? Like, how do you come down from that? I can only imagine what it's like to, be like quarterback in the NFL.
Right.
So much is on your shoulders. And then that's great. You've got a great game. You've got a terrible game. But either way, such a rush.
Yeah.
What are the couple hours like after that,
Especially after a loss. I mean, it would be like, comparison to you guys, playing a show where they didn't sell tickets like you thought they would, and you show up, and I'm sure that's a challenge. Fun questions, though. Let's do favorite concert or venue you've ever played.
Favorite concert? Are you gonna ask like favorite act to play with? Is that another one? Because
You can do both.
I was gonna do kind of
yeah.
combine the two. Early on in our career, we did a string of shows with the Dave Matthews Band.
Oh, that's sweet.
And like I didn't grow up listening to country as my main
Genre?
source of music. Yeah. But Dave Matthews Band was like always at the top for me, and they for a long time were picking acts outside of their own type of music, but like regionally, who's doing well, who's an up and coming act. And so this is before we were really on the national stage in a big way. And so we played like Oklahoma City, Dallas, and Houston.
Okay.
And just that string of 3 shows was so cool. Get on stage. Dave was such a cool guy. He brought us on every night. Went up to the microphone and was like, "These are my very good friends, the Eli Young Band." And then he watched our whole set every night side stage.
That's so cool.
Front to start. Like, come on.
How many headliners do that? Not many.
None.
Yeah.
You'll have, if you're on a long tour, you'll have a headliner that'll come out and watch part of your show a few times, kind of see what you're all about. I've never had another headliner watch the whole set.
Wow.
Had to do it 3 nights in a row. And it was like steak and lobster for dinner, and Dave would go out on his bicycle with a hat on and like give front row tickets to people that he saw like recycling or throwing trash away. And he would do that until people realized it was him, and then the gig was up and he'd hightail it backstage.
Oh my gosh.
Is this person for
Is he
real?
real? Yeah.
There's a old saying of like, you may not want to meet your heroes.
Yeah.
No.
He's
worthy of that.
Dave's a real deal.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What have been some of, just to follow up on that, what have been some of the coolest people you've been able to meet with this gig? Because you get to do things, whether it be, playing at NFL stadiums or going on tour with Kenny Chesney, Dave Matthews Band. You get to meet, I'm sure, people that I dream of meeting, people watching dream of meeting. Who are some of the people that stand out that you've got to kind of rub elbows with?
So this year we did, a couple of us did the golf tournament for Michael Phelps for his foundation.
Oh, cool.
Which is a awesome foundation, which
Yeah.
deals with swimming at a young age and water safety, but also with mental health awareness. And he's doing some great work, and you can tell he's very passionate about it. And just getting to meet him and everybody who was there involved with the foundation, and it's weird when you like do a celebrity tournament and that's one of those times where I really feel like I've got imposter syndrome, but so it goes. It's for a good cause, and someone paid to play golf with me, and I'm terrible at golf.
Yeah, me too.
As
long as you can look the part, that helps a little bit.
I dressed the part.
There you go.
I did.
It's like skiing.
Exactly.
As long as you look good, that's half the battle.
Very expensive, and
Yeah.
looking the part is what it's all about. Michael Phelps was awesome. Tour with Kenny Chesney was just great. He was played basketball with him every day.
Oh, wow, okay.
Down to earth guy.
Is he good at basketball? Are you good at basketball?
I'm decent at basketball.
Okay.
I grew up playing some basketball. Played on like an 8-foot hoop. Kenny is the height of probably an average lead singer. They're typically shorter
like
than
my height.
About.
Yeah.
Yeah, about. But I think that's kind of the thing is they play an 8-foot hoop, so that took a lot of getting used to. But once you do, it's like, oh, I can dunk on this. That's amazing. We toured with Dirk Bentley. Darius Rucker was another great guy.
Yeah.
Coming from Hootie and the Blowfish, so down to earth, but also like being with a band for so long that was like the biggest band in the world for a while. That he really got the dynamic of who we were. Yeah. And that made just for such a fun year.
So he did something super cool in Cincinnati. It's a huge high school football community, and some of these high school football stadiums hold 10, 15,000. And so he played a show with, Kyle Rudolph. He was the tight end of the NFL. They partnered at his high school, Elder, on the west side of Cincinnati, and he played a show at the high school football stadium, the Pit, for like 20,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Which is just speaks to his character, and obviously it was a charity event too. Super cool. Last couple things. Mental health show, but I want to get into kind of maybe some fun things happen on the road. What's one of maybe the best experiences you've had on the road? Coolest place you've been? Maybe biggest, I don't know if biggest party is the right way because you're in a different phase of life. We don't want to talk about that with kids watching.
It was one of the strangest little tours we did. We did a USO tour. It was just a couple shows. We've been overseas a handful of times playing for the troops, which is always awesome.
Super cool, yeah.
Like you get a really profound sense of like patriotism, and makes you see like what we're doing in such a different way.
Yeah.
But we did a show down in the Bahamas at Andros Marine Base. It's like one of the smallest little installations we have, just middle of nowhere in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
And it was so cool. I had to take like this little plane there and just played an acoustic set in like their commissary.
Oh, that's sweet.
and it's like a beach tiki bar with this little bass. Everybody's so cool. Like no one's wearing shoes. That was amazing. And we went from there to go play in the northernmost post we have in the Thule base up in Greenland.
Yeah.
And I think because of bad weather, plane got diverted onto Greenland. And so we had to spend the night and a day on this like random, used to be an Air Force installation of some kind.
Yeah.
But like saw the Northern Lights.
Oh, wow.
Ate muskox. Big, ugly animal.
Yeah.
Tastes pretty good. Kind of stringy.
Yeah. Okay.
Kind of weird. Yeah, it was kind of like a stew and a gravy.
Yeah.
But like walking around, it was like all these really old giant antennas from like the Cold War era. It was just like the most surreal landscape up there.
That's crazy.
And we finally made it to the base. We're like in like, I don't know, a C-130 or whatever. It was a military, it was full of cargo of some kind. They had some seats. And we weren't the reason for the plane. We were just there. And because of the timing, like we landed, shook some hands, got back on the plane, and took off. No show, no nothing.
Oh, wow.
So on that side, it was like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? But it was still cool that we made it. But having that like strange experience in the most random, desolate part of the world, was like music brought me here.
That was not the answer I was thinking I was going to get.
Yeah, no, it's
like you're going to tell me about some crazy party with Snoop Dogg out in LA or something like that.
Right? No, maybe that's the nerd in me. It's like that stuff, the really like big rock star stuff. I kind of shake my head at because I don't want to get too into that sometimes.
Yeah.
It's fun, but those moments pass. It's like sometimes you find yourself somewhere like playing Red Rocks or playing a stadium for the first time. Like there's 60,000 people here.
Like holy shit,
that's
this is real.
Amazing. Yeah. Like okay.
Yep, this is why I signed up for it.
Yeah, and then you can just like feel your heartbeat just out of your chest. That's a feeling that I wish you could capture and sell.
Yeah,
and maybe there is a drug that is probably really bad for you.
Probably.
But then that's back to mental health. Like that's a feeling you can't sustain.
Yeah, you can't be on that high 24/7.
Yeah, like how do you take that in stride? And like once you have it, how do you get by without needing it?
Yeah.
And trying to enjoy it when it's there. Yeah.
Last thing I'll ask you, what would be your advice to kids that are high school, college, playing bar gigs, writing music, playing with friends? What is your biggest advice for people that want to follow the path that you guys did and make it in a business that is, if not the hardest, one of the hardest to make it in?
That's when I feel like we're dinosaurs. We did it like that old school way where we were a bar band, hit the ground, meeting fans one at a time.
Right.
Getting like a college circuit around Texas and regionally where we could go play and make some money and slowly organically build it. Mm-hmm. I would say where I feel like that gave us a really strong foundation.
Sure.
And let us learn our chops. And if we would have hit success on day one, I don't think we would have been ready for it. And I think it would have been the end of us. But maybe because we did it slow, that was right for us. But I'm not going to say that getting that quick success isn't a good thing. Like, there's so many great avenues to get your music out there now.
Right. It's totally changed.
It's totally changed. So you don't want advice from this old man. Like I love the way we did it. And, but we were kind of doing it the old fashioned way when we did it, but it was so much fun. But have fun. I mean, shit. If you're not having fun, what are you doing out there?
Right.
This is a terrible job if you don't like it. If you don't like the touring, if you don't like being on the road. I've watched so many people that have come out and played with us or whatever. And if you don't like this side of it, it'll make you hate music.
Right.
Like if you start not liking music, go into IT, whatever. Start something else. And surround yourself with good people that want to take your career farther, that you can trust. That's it.
Awesome. John, I appreciate it.
Brandon.
It's been fun. Good advice there to end on, and we'll be back next week right here on The Mental Game.
And a big thanks to Jon for opening up with me in that conversation. We actually shot that episode back at the end of the summer here in Cincinnati before a show for the Eli Young Band. They invited me to it. It was so cool to watch them perform backstage. So thanks to Jon and all of the guys for that amazing experience and that conversation you just heard. Coming up next week, another amazing conversation, this time with Reds outfielder Jake Fraley. We talk about his baseball career, his own mental health struggles, and how he almost quit playing baseball this past season. All of that and much more in the next episode of The Mental Game. We'll see you right back here next week.